There's a strange kind of grief that comes from being made to feel like the villain in your own home. Not because you did anything wrong, but because somewhere along the way, the people you love started treating your generosity like an entitlement, and your boundaries like betrayal. Tonight's story is about a mother, a refrigerator, and a daughter who would rather call her own mom greedy than admit her boyfriend has a problem. This is her story. In her own words, her daughter has a boyfriend. They're both 18, and he's often over at the house. At first, it was fine. She's not a frugal person. She doesn't mind feeding teenagers. Spaghetti, tacos, chicken, snacks, typical home-cooked meals while the kids hung out. But over the last few months, something shifted. He started opening the fridge to examine what was inside without asking. A few times, he asked for permission with the container already in his hand. Then came the comments. Not directly to her, but to her daughter, in a voice clearly meant to be overheard. "Your mom hasn't made that chicken dish in a while. I thought there would be pasta tonight." And he eats. A lot. Finishing almost all the cheese, drinking the last of the juice, taking the final frozen waffles and then moving on to the pantry for more. She says she felt ridiculous, like she was counting pieces of food. But it bothered her. She didn't want to embarrass him, or her daughter, by saying anything directly. So she spoke to her daughter privately and asked her to tell her boyfriend to behave a little more politely in their house. Her daughter got upset, called her mother greedy, said she was making a big deal out of eating. Now she doesn't know how to feel. And she feels like her own daughter sees her in a bad light for simply wanting to be respected in her own kitchen. In the comments, she elaborated on exactly how this felt. Reddit responded almost unanimously, "Not the asshole." 94% upvoted, nearly 10,000 points. Here's what I keep circling back to in this story. It's not really about the cheese, or the waffles, or even the increasingly bold dinner requests from a teenage boy who has clearly made himself at home in someone else's kitchen. It's about a mother who is more afraid of her daughter's disappointment than she is willing to defend her own boundaries. Read that line again. "I feel like my daughter sees me in a bad light." That's not a sentence about food. That's a sentence about a mother who has spent years making herself smaller so her daughter would feel loved, and is now terrified that the moment she asks for basic respect, she'll lose that closeness entirely. And on the other side of this story is a teenage boy who has quietly tested exactly how far he could go in someone else's home, and found that the answer was pretty far, actually, because nobody wanted to be the one to stop him. Several commenters raised something worth sitting with, that he may not be food secure at home, that this behavior might come from scarcity rather than entitlement. I don't think that excuses opening someone's fridge without asking, but it does add a layer of compassion to a story that could otherwise just be about a rude kid. Either way, the real conflict here was never between a mother and a boyfriend. It was between a mother and her own fear of being seen as anything other than endlessly giving. The top comment, with over 18,000 upvotes, said it about as cleanly as possible. If he's comfortable enough to request specific meals, he's comfortable enough to hear some basic house rules. The top comment, with over 18,000 upvotes, said it about as cleanly as possible. If he's comfortable enough to request specific meals, he's comfortable enough to hear some basic house rules. To be fair to the other side, several commenters paused the pile-on to ask a genuinely compassionate question. Does he have a stable home life? Is food scarce where he lives? It's a reminder that entitlement and hunger can sometimes look identical from the outside. And then there's the minority opinion. The voices who said the real issue is that she went to her daughter instead of speaking to the boyfriend directly. This is your house. Use your words. Talk to him yourself. Here's where Wren lands on this one. She's not wrong to want respect in her own home. Nobody should have to negotiate their right to a stocked fridge with their own teenager. But the bravest thing she could do isn't talking to her daughter about her boyfriend's manners. It's looking her daughter in the eye and saying, I am allowed to set boundaries in my own home, even if you don't like it. Even if you call me greedy. Even if, for a little while, you see me as the villain. Because real love, the kind that lasts, was never about being agreeable. It was about being respected. More whispers are coming? Follow Wren so you never miss one. I'll see you in the shadows.